Okay, if I wanted to use a repeater in Rome, Italy, I can dial up through EchoLink, okay, and I can key up a repeater, a ham radio repeater in Rome, Italy, and I can talk to somebody locally there I want. And any repeater in any place on the earth that is connected to the internet, I can use their radio system just using my cell phone. If you don't have a garden, you started late, you saying, oh, I need to prep, I need to get going here, I need to start growing my own food. Okay, well, yeah, you can go out and you can, get a shovel. And I don't believe in digging into the soil in the first place. I think that's crazy. Okay, I believe in no dig gardening. Okay, if you're going to garden at all. But even a quicker way, an instant way, is to get yourself 50 or 60 grow bags.
And good afternoon, everyone. Today with me, Dennis DeLaurier. And then greenhouses and getting out almost instant gardens by putting grow bags together. So that's what Dennis's side's about. Me, I'm going to dovetail into that with the fertilizer and the herbicide shortages, where we're going with planetary alignments that are going to cause magnetic disturbances on our planet, i.e. more volcanic eruptions, stranger weather with jet streams, cloud cells. So hopefully, today's talk between he and I will give you some really valuable information in terms of getting ready. And remember, if you want to go to TheGSMPrepper.com, and remember that GSM's grand solar minimum. So Dennis, I appreciate you spending your time.
Getting your ham license allows you to actually monitor the whole world. You just have to have the right equipment. The higher up you go in frequency, like the little handy talkie you have, it's the VHF, UHF, okay? That's 150 megahertz in the UHF is 450, that range of megahertz. The higher you get up in frequency, the shorter the range is, okay? I mean, you cannot talk with those handy talkies anywhere but locally, unless you get into a repeater. And I'm gonna talk about repeaters here in a minute if you want, okay? But so you've got the start there. You got a radio at home, okay? You've got your own little personal radio system going on there. You want to talk to your neighbors. You really, really do want to talk to your neighbors. You do really, really want a community, because you can't make it by yourself. If things get really bad, it's just not going to work. Okay, you can't be a Superman, or what is it? You can't be a one-man whatever band, I guess, or a very good one anyway. So that's what I would suggest. Get that darn ham radio equipment, okay, and then practice using it. Now, if you want to, I can. I've got a section on my blog about secure communications. Okay, you got to remember, radio waves go everywhere. Okay, you can't control where they go. You might be able to control the direction they may. You can an antenna that has a gain and you can point. Okay, but that's the only. But radio waves pretty well. They squirt everywhere. They bounce off stuff and everything else. So if you can afford it for the UHF and VHF, get a digital radio. Okay, and digital radios are the radio systems that the police and the state police and government agencies use for communications. Okay, and most people don't have that kind of equipment. Okay, and especially you can get ham radio equipment. You can pick up a digital handy talkie for about $85 to $90. Okay, that'll do UHF and VHF digital. Now, nobody's going to intercept that. Let's talk about repeaters. That's the other thing. And that's one of the nice things about the equipment that you've bought there, that you can program that to get into local repeaters and actually use them and talk with people instead of just listening. Okay, you're going to need a license to transmit, okay, those two radios. You can only listen until you get that license. Okay, so what a repeater does is essentially a repeater is a transmitter and a receiver with an antenna. Usually it's some really high place. They put them on top of towers and all kinds of things. And the repeater transmits and receives at the same time. Okay, but it's an offset frequency. Okay, and that's the way you program Like for instance, if you're UHF, your offset is 5 megahertz. In other words, you transmit at one frequency and 5 megahertz over, you listen. Well, it's just the opposite on a repeater. Okay. Okay. So you're transmitting, the repeater receives your signal, retransmits it on a frequency 5 megahertz removed from the received, because you don't want interference between the two. Okay. And you program your little radio there to receive that repeater. Okay. And that's how it works. So essentially, you talk, the repeater receives your signal, retransmits it, and someone hears it. Okay. Then you quit talking and the repeater drops out. The other person keys up his handy talkie or whatever, starts talking. Okay. The repeater receives his transmission, retransmits it, and you hear it. So you can go back and forth. But the nice thing about that is you're looking at 50, 60, depends on how high that tower is. You know, some of these towers get way up there. Okay. I know when I went into New Mexico, I was up at 10,000 feet and I could talk to repeaters. And I was just coming out of Texas into Albuquerque and places like that, just on repeaters that were way up up in the air, up in tops of mountains and things like that. Okay. So repeaters can extend that. And then on top of that, ham radios have done what they call repeater to repeater. Okay. So they transmit, the other repeater picks it up, it retransmits, it just keeps going. And you end up in California from Texas. Okay. We have some of those here in Texas. I can actually talk to ham radio operators in California directly over radios, not the internet. Okay. There's another little option for my cell phone here. Let me bring it up. And this is kind of cool now, although if the internet goes down, it wouldn't be all that useful. But there is an app. Let's see, where is it? I haven't used it in a while. It's called EchoLink. Okay. You have to have a ham radio license to use EchoLink. But let me tell you how I use this. One day, I was getting ready for a vacation and I was going to be leaving in 2 or 3 days. And I was worried about the weather where I was going. I was going up in the mountains of New Mexico. So I brought up my EchoLink, which is a app. Okay. And it uses the internet. And repeaters in those areas are connected to the internet. So I could get in to that repeater over my cell phone using the internet and then transmit on their repeater locally. And I just got on here and said, this is, K5, blah, blah, blah. Anybody around in the blah, blah, blah area that I could talk with. And yeah, some guy pops up. Yeah, what's going on, Dennis? And I said, hey, I'm going to be visiting you. And like I say, this guy's, in New Mexico somewhere. And what's the weather like? I'm wondering, I'm going to be traveling through there. We're going to be doing XXYZ. What's it like? Well, this guy was glad to tell me that. Okay. Well, that's a ham radio application, uses the internet. But the nice thing about this is that I can use this application to actually talk to a ham radio operator or through a repeater that is anywhere on Earth that the internet can talk to. Okay. If I wanted to use a repeater in Rome, Italy, I can dial up through EchoLink. Okay. And I can key up a repeater, a ham radio repeater in Rome, Italy, and I can talk to somebody locally there I want. And any repeater in any place on the earth that is connected to the internet, I can use their radio system just using my cell phone. It's kind of cool. So
now
that's just one aspect of ham radio, just one.
Let me ask you, can you pick up and listen to traffic over those same repeaters, or is it is it outbound only, or can you just set up a station, set up a repeater and then just listen?
I can listen to that traffic. Okay. And then, as I said, I would learn as much as I could about ham radio because it's an old thing. Okay. My hero was Marconi. Okay. He transmitted the first radio waves across the Atlantic into the East Coast. Okay. Well, Marconi, would you believe he used a coil and a capacitor and a battery and a key. And, when he put that key down, amps and flashed through that key, man, but it generated enough racket and noise and radio waves, and it was connected to his antenna, and it went all the way across the Atlantic. Okay. And the other guy on the other side used a what? He used a crystal diode radio receiver to receive him. I don't know if you ever had one of those when you were a kid. They have a little galenium crystal with a little cat, thing, and you have a coil and you can tune in radio stations with it. Well, that's what they were using, junk like that. Okay, so that got me going. I liked all the Explorers, and all that. I read all that when I was a kid.
Well, that was Radio Shack Con when you used to be able to go in as a kid and they had just oodles of things. You pulled out those little plastic drawers and you would buy little kits and you could assemble things in Radio Shack. Not the Radio Shack today, but you could have built stuff back then.
Then, like I say, we've dumbed down really, even though our technology it's tremendous the things we can do with technology nowadays. But the problem is that it takes electricity. It takes takes brains to use and make, and sometimes too. Maybe to get started, most people listening, you might want to get the FRS, the Family Radio System, or the GMRS, which requires an application at the FCC. Okay, and a few bucks, and they'll send you a license. But with the GMRS license, you can actually have a repeater. Okay, you could put a repeater up. Okay, so
on your own property.
On your own property, yeah. Well, you can do that with ham radio too, except you're going to have to talk to the coordinator that coordinates repeaters, because you don't want to use the same frequency, that some local repeater is using. But yeah, you could put one on your own property. But you could go the GMRS route, and all your community or all your local people that are around you could have GMRS radios, and they could use that repeater. And again, you could run that off solar power too. Okay, so in an emergency and everything goes down, if you put it up high enough on a tower, you could probably get 40-45 miles of communications distance. So you could have a lot of friends.
Well, think about that. As you having communications when others don't, it's a whole another level up, like having night vision equipment. You can see in the dark when others can't. And,
exactly.
It's a huge game changer with night vision equipment.
That's why
not that I have any, but just envisioning it.
Yeah, I have it. And let me tell you, it's a nice feeling to be able to go out in the pitch dark. Okay, it's cloudy. There ain't no stars out, and to put that over your eye and just walk around and, go over and pluck an egg from underneath a chicken, and he won't even know you're there.
So what are your thoughts on CB radios for cars or trucks to be able to have mobile communication?
I was going to bring that up. CB is cool.
It used to be really popular in the 70s. Everyone Breaker 19 for a 1036, all those Smokey and the Bandit movies and all that stuff. Oh man, that was huge in the 70s.
Oh, here's the thing. You can get single sideband CB equipment if you want. Okay. Regular CB equipment is 27 megahertz. Okay. Which is around 11 meters or 10 meters, somewhere in there. Okay. Takes a pretty big antenna, but you can get really nice city communications with that equipment. But no, CB is good. What I don't like about CB is the size of the antenna that you have to put on a vehicle. You get a big old whip, and sometimes it's loaded, which is a coil that makes it shorter. It's called a loading coil. But boy, that's good to have. If your neighbors all had CB equipment, that would be that would be a good idea as well. And again, your neighbors, if they're going to use it though, they're going to need battery backup and all that in an emergency anyway. So I don't know. This is just one part of prepping to me is radio communications. It's knowing what's going on. What's going on, what goes on in your environment all the time. You're not just, stay in your house and sleep and, watch Netflix or something like that. And I'd like to tell one thing to all your friends out there. If they're having troubles with their wife or their husband or their family when it comes to prepping, understand that some people can't take all this what others might call gloom and doom. Okay. I don't find prepping gloom and doom. I don't. I think it's just being smart. Okay. But a lot of people mentally can't handle it. Okay. My wife is like that. Okay. She cannot take a bombardment of all the things that I'm interested in every day and talk about and blog about, and it's part of my life. She can't take that. And there's a lot of people like that. They just mentally can't handle that. So understand that and go easy. And I'll tell you another thing. I've been at it so long now that I'm actually hearing some of my ideas being reflected back from my family about preparedness. And I'm going, holy mackerel, you know, the other day I heard we ought to have a lot more water around here than we do, because why? Well, it was snow. What was it? What did they call it? The Texas big snowstorm we had here. That woke up a lot of people, killed a lot of people.
I think it was called Ice-mageddon or was some
or
term
something
like that.
Snowmageddon. I think that's what it was.
Does it seem that the awareness of things changing in the economy and the governments and food production and just the stability of society is sort of a sixth sense that a lot of people are picking up on just globally as a survival mechanism? The human itself as a species is picking up on something at a deeper undercurrent that is, cyclically being put out by every single person. That something's picked up where there's an enormous amount of people that are now thinking in a completely different way that they hadn't even a year ago, even though COVID had been rolling around. It's just something recently has sort of tipped them over a bit into completely different thought. Cosmic rays, not sure. Magnetic field anomalies on the planet, not sure. But something is definitely putting a lot of people into, something's wrong. I just don't understand it.
You've heard the word loony, right? You're a loony. Well, that came from lunar, which was people seemed to go crazy when there was a full moon. Okay. And
guilty.
I'm not
guilty.
Yeah, guilty. Right. But I'm just saying people got on edge and all kinds of things. Okay. During that. And when the moon was the largest, the biggest, closest to the earth, things like that. So we don't really understand, I think, our electromagnetic environment too much when it comes to like health and other things. Okay. I don't think we really know that, but I do see an awakening. But what scares me is it's maybe too late eventually for a lot of people. Like I was telling you, I was talking about, I go to Walmart. I supply a lot of pasta for the local food bank for a local church. I'm not even a member. They just have on Saturdays, they hand out free food. Okay. And so I'm always dumping stuff down there to them. And one of the things I like to dump is pasta. Okay. That's a good food for the kids. And there's a lot of calories. Well, we haven't had pasta on our local Walmart shelf for 2 weeks now. 2 weeks. There's no, and I'm not talking about boxed pasta, which is a whole lot more, the fancy stuff that nobody buys hardly. I'm just talking about the regular cellophane wrapped, pasta. There hasn't been any there. And so yesterday, or 2 days ago, I talked to one of the guys that worked there. I said, hey, what's going on with the pasta? And he says, there's a shortage of it. And he says, it's not just at this Walmart. He says, it's also at other local stores. You can't get any cellophane wrapped up pasta anymore, like spaghetti and things like that, or bags of, I don't know. There's all kinds of weird ways you can get pasta. Not there. And I think that's waking people up. I go through the grocery store and I'm seeing things. I'm just seeing more and more junk and less food. Okay. In these stores. So I think that's waking people up. But what scares me is that, and you and I have been on this, 2023 kick for a long time. I think that's really when people are going to wake up, and it may be too late to be, all these things we're talking about, radio prepping, having medical gear at home, and actually practicing it. I'm lucky. I have 2 nurses in my, family. My wife is one, and my daughter-in-law, and and all the other things that goes into, taking care of yourself, which are like water. You got to have water, and then there's food, and then there's health, and then there's safety. And then I think on top of all that, there's community. Okay. And that all, and you need to know your neighbor. You need to know who your friends are. You have to, and people seem to kind of move around off from that. They're afraid of each other. People are afraid of people. Okay. And that's why I really don't think that personally, I've got some on my blog. It says 1 out of 10 is going to make it through this, and the rest are just going to be afraid, and they're going to be in their box waiting for somebody to come by and rescue them.
Yeah, we've been taught as other humans are competition to you.
Yeah, exactly.
But in the schooling system, that person sitting next to you is going to take your job.
Yeah.
Or something. And with the wake up calls going on, if you haven't seen the lockdowns where they're welding people into their buildings again in Xi'an this time, we saw the same thing in Wuhan. You see the collapse over in Turkey. You see the collapse happening in Kazakhstan. And you could talk all day long about Venezuela and Zimbabwe, but at what point do people go, I wonder if that could come to a country near us? Because, those sort of scenarios had been limited only to, once a decade, just a chapter in history, once a decade, something went erroneously wrong, like Zimbabwe or Venezuela. Now you got 4 or 5 of these things happening at the exact same time right now. Where think about the stories coming out of Xi'an, the city that's having a double outbreak, or there's some kind of retrovirus and the SARS and the regular COVID happening all at the same time. So they're welding people in their buildings, and the food's running out. So people are starting to barter and trade inside the buildings. So you start to see how people can self-organize if they need to, because they can't escape. See, if they could escape, they would probably be stealing from their neighbors. But because they're all locked in there, you steal from your neighbor, everybody's going to know, and you're going to have to deal with that. So, it's just a different thing. Like, how many times do we need a wake-up call here? How fast did Kazakhstan collapse? 24 hours? They had nothing, no ATMs. And the people are always talking about crypto and say, well, if the electricity goes down, you'll have no crypto, huh? Well, the same thing. There's no ATMs, there's no banking, there's no internet, the power's off, and then nobody has access to finance. No credit cards, no debit cards work. You got gold, silver, and fiat and whatever else is tradable right now in Kazakhstan. And that looks like it's poised to continue for quite some time, another couple of weeks before things return. At what point do you say, there's 5 instances of this thing happening on the planet right now, when it used to be once a decade. Now there's 5 in a single span of a month. Well, what's going on here? Because Turkey, the collapse of the currency, I mean, what's going to happen in any country where the currency collapses? We already seen it. So it could be a little distant wake-up call for a lot of people to start to get more ready. Nobody's coming to rescue you. You said it, you hit it on the head. There's no cavalry coming. You take your own autonomy and self-sufficiency, or you end up in a camp, perhaps.
Let's face it, it's those 5 things that, it's the water, the food, the security, your health, the security, and then there's community. And if you lose that, you've lost it. You've lost it. And that's why there's so many opportunities now. You could build you could have a greenhouse business now. You know what? You can't find greenhouses anymore on the internet. They're all sold out. They're sold out. So if you could somehow and you can buy the equipment and start building greenhouses and selling them, you'd have a nice business. That's a good, grand solar minimum business right there. Being a nurse, security. I could probably, if I started thinking about it, I could come up with 20, 25, 30 different things that would make really, really good businesses during the grand solar minimum, and food shortages and things like that. Can you fix a car? Can you shoe a horse? We have 2 horses out here. This guy comes out, or this young girl comes out and, does all the horse stuff, and checks the horse out and puts the horseshoes on and all that kind of stuff, does the hoofs, and so, I think, you can be gloom and doom all day, but you really, really need to talk about the possibilities. okay, of what's coming, the opportunities, how you're going to get through this. And it's not going to be sitting in a black box somewhere. Eating, as I always say in my blog, eating pizza and beer, okay, and then one day someone knocks on your door, and that your life ends. Is the way you know it anyway, and it doesn't have to be that way. It can be wonderful. It's amazing what the human spirit can do. If you just make up your mind, and what I think is really fascinating is that, let's say that you had an auditorium and you had 10,000 people in there. Okay. And if you ran some guy up there with a microphone and he said, I'm interested in X, Y, Z, and I want to make this the best X, Y, Z I could ever make. All of a sudden, you'd have about 40 or 50, 100 people come running up there. Okay. And say, man, I'm into that too. Let's do it. Okay. Well, that's what we need. We need people that are, let's do it people. You can't be afraid, like those people in that elevator going up and down. And I'm sorry, I don't see that, but maybe we're going to wake up one day and we're going to do things like that. The human spirit is going to take over, and it's going to say no. That's a powerful word. No. What does that mean? No.
Staying on the food aspect, I'd like to pick your brain, because you used to have the microgreens business. You just mentioned greenhouses, right? That the plug and play kits you can't really buy anymore. So you're going to have to get your own cattle panel and put up your own framing, and then run the 6mm poly over that, or maybe even double layer it and get a blower in there. Okay. That's doable. It's a skill set. Once you learn that, you can do it everywhere.
Right.
But you had mentioned grow bags before we talked here, a couple of days ago. You were talking about the fastest way to put up a garden, grow bags. Since you have this experience growing in greenhouse with the, with the ventilation and with the irrigation, nutrition, liquid fertilizers going through. So if I have nothing today and suddenly I come into a greenhouse, like my neighbor's old carport, they thought, oh, we don't need that anymore. We could convert it into a greenhouse pretty quickly. How would I then fill it with something that would put food in my body? I know microgreens are awesome, but you're using the seed. Eventually you're going to have to bring something to seed, which we did all last year, kept experimenting, bringing things to seed, drying it out, planting it again, trying to get a second generation out of the seeds, especially beans and thing. But walk me through that whole thing. What grow bags? Because that was one thing I kept, I need more grow bags. I got about 30 or so, but we probably need more.
Yeah, you need 500 or 600 probably to start. Anyway, they're not that much. Grow bags, you can buy them in bulk for, 40 cents a piece. And if you're very careful, you could probably get a couple seasons out of them. I don't particularly like the felt grow bags. Okay, they're too expensive to start with. And, like I say, if you're careful, you can use it. But anyway, a grow bag.
You're talking about plastic. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you're talking about plastic, not felt, because the felt, they have those handles on it. And there's a lot of seepage out of there when you irrigate or when you water that. Yeah.
If that floats your boat, go ahead. But I can get a whole lot more grow bags for a lot less money. And,
plastic.
A lot of people don't like plastic, but if I'm hungry, I'm going to love plastic if it's going food. But so anyway, I use 5 or 6 gallon grow bags. Okay. And I think I showed you that one picture of my greenhouse.
You did. It was amazing.
Last year with all the tomatoes. Well, anyway, if you don't have a garden, you started late, you saying, oh, I need to prep. I need to get going here. I need to start growing my own food. Okay. Well, yeah, you can go out and you can, get a shovel. And I don't believe in digging into the soil in the first place. I think that's crazy. Okay. I believe in no dig gardening. Okay. If you're going to garden at all. But even a quicker way, an instant way, is to get yourself 50 or 60 grow bags. They're 5 gallons. Okay. They have holes in the bottom. You fill them up with good compost and soil or whatever you can get your hands on. Okay. And then you plant things in them. You start your starts, you put your starts in there. The nice thing is that you can put them close together. There's no weeding. Okay. There's none, hardly any at all weeding. Okay. You can regulate the water. Water doesn't evaporate like it does into the ground. You dump gallons and gallons of water into the ground and It just goes all over the place. Well, in a grow bag, no, that's not going to happen. So you can regulate it, and you would say, oh, well, you might, doesn't the water kind of pour out of the bottom of the green? No, it doesn't. If you're watching what you're doing, okay, you can see when you've watered it enough. And the nice thing about a grow bag is it sucks gobs of oxygen down to the roots of the plant in that bag.